It was a year and a half since Ruin DLC for Security Breach came out, and while we wait for Secret of the Mimic somewhere in this year, it's a prequel, so the events of Ruin still don't have any closure. We don't know what ending will be canon, and which of the characters will survive and return in the next installment. So today we are going to assess the chances of survival for the entire Security Breach cast. Because let's be real, most of us have become attached to these characters, whom we encountered, whose suffering and development we saw, and it is their fate that worries us. So let's begin with the most obvious one, Glamrock Freddy. With the knowledge that the ending of Security Breach is Princess Quest, we can be sure that Freddy is alive, but that came at the price of his body. After all that happened to him and everyone he loves, he might be experiencing depression or at least some form of guilt. The only positive in here is that the power won't be a problem, since it seems that the batteries are placed inside animatronics' heads. Otherwise, Freddy wouldn't be able to function nor in this ending nor during the interrogation. Possibly in the future we will need to find him a new body, unless this will happen behind the scenes in a time skip, which I hope won't happen. Now we are moving to the Daycare Attendant. In both Security Breach and Ruin, Sun and Moon were just small side characters who appeared at a few points of the games and didn't have much influence on the story. In Ruin we fuse Sun and Moon into one personality, Eclipse, and then leave him early in the game in the daycare. At first it looks like a pretty bright future for him. His main problem with split personality was fixed, and he didn't took much physical damage. But in the end you realize something important. He is completely clueless about the state of his surroundings.
Little girl, you can't be in here. It's dangerous. I need to clean up before we can open in the morning. Oh, this place will be flooded with kids.
So in the worst case scenario, he will continue to work in the ruined daycare until he will be completely out of power. Or until someone will find him and get him out of there. The latter won't be much of a problem. Without Moon, Daycare Attendant doesn't seem to be a threat. And he doesn't have any dangerous factors nearby that could have killed him. So I think we can say that his chances to survive are pretty high. With one survivor and one most likely survivor, it's time to counter it with two who are most likely dead. Starting with Glamrock Bonnie. We don't know what personality Bonnie had, and we know very little about the circumstances of his death. However, we do know that he was most likely killed by Monty, and that Fazbear Entertainment didn't want to repair him. Bonnie might have crossed some line that turned him into a nuisance for Fazbear Entertainment, but it doesn't seem that he was experiencing any sort of personality problems or quirks. So from this side he was pretty good. His body took significant damage, but it's not the main problem. If Fazbear Entertainment were at least in some capacity behind his decommission, when they saw him broken on the ground, which must have been a long time ago, they could have made sure that he won't be repaired. Let's say by removing his behavior chip, batteries, and other crucial components inside him. There's also a matter of wet floorboards. To access the body, you need to deactivate all of them. When they are active, they make sounds as if there was some children's souls behind them. Bonnie is surrounded by 4 floorboards, and if you look closely you can see that his eyes are lit. But when you deactivate all the floorboards, his eyes become dim. Maybe it's just an Easter egg, or maybe there's some deeper meaning behind all of this. But for now it doesn't look like this Bonnie can come back. And considering that we never knew him to begin with, it's not that big of a loss compared to the others. Although it would have been interesting to hear his side of the story from him. And the next likely casualty is Montgomery Gator. After being shattered in Security Breach, he already lost his mind and became more akin to an aggressive beast. In Ruin, this condition only worsened, in addition to him suffering some damage to one of his eyes and losing his paint, making him barely recognizable. This sounds repairable until he accidentally drowns in the electrified water, which should have fried what was left of his personality chip, programming and wiring. After that, repairing him sounds more like building a new one. So this guy has very low chances of coming back, the same as Bonnie. The fact that he appears on the Call of Mixes after he drowns looks more like a game mechanic that Steelwool had troubles avoiding. But moving on to Chica, she has a much higher chances to return than Monty and Bonnie combined. By the time of ruin, her mind is completely broken. She is focused only on eating and nothing more, but the food doesn't hold inside her broken stomach. She also loses power and then gains it back by accidentally falling inside a recharge station. We leave Chica inside the bathroom after giving her back her voice box. Giving back her voice box is a secret, but even a secret can have consequences. And knowing Cassie's character, this is most likely a canon event. So, while Chica is left out of power, she can definitely come back in several ways. She might recharge some power with time and get out by herself. Cassie can repair her later if the mimic left her in the rubbles of the elevator, or Fazbear Entertainment can still send people to this place and recover everything that is possible. If this voice box won't play out in the future, and Chica won't return in any capacity, then what was the point? I left Roxy for the last, as she is the most important part for this channel, and she has the most things to talk about. In Ruin, Roxy has the most stable mental state out of other animatronics. The only problem that she had is that she was fixated on finding Gregory. But Cassie with her voice has got Roxy out of this state, and Roxy becomes the Roxy that she's supposed to be.
Give me back my eyes! Ah! Let go! Let go! I'm sorry.
Physically, she is deformed, but sustained no significant damage to the most vital parts. She has no missing limbs, her wiring seems to be intact, and she doesn't struggle with her battery. The only significant part that she is missing is her eyes, thanks to Gregory. That is the state of Roxy before her fight with the Mimic. Judging by the sounds from the fight, she didn't lose any limbs and was just smashed against the wall or the floor.
Give up! Give up. You can't.
But the fact that she powered down after a hit like this could mean that she sustained some damage to her battery. Her chances to survive further depend on what ending of Ruin we are taking into consideration. The Brazil and Scooper endings give her very low chances to survive. In the Brazil ending, Cassie is trapped in the mask and her fate is unknown, while the elevator wasn't activated. So Mimic will need to go back and move through the room where Roxy is. In the Scooper ending, it is uncertain what happened. Mimic is not in the costume, and it doesn't look like his body was sucked into the Scooper, so it seems that he just ran off. The elevator wasn't activated in this ending too, so Mimic would need to go through the room where Roxy is, same as in the Brazil ending. But if we will go with the elevator ending, which I think is most likely to be the canon one, then Roxy has a good chance of surviving. First, after the credits we hear her voice, which of course could be either the Mimic or her.
Cassie.
But if it's the Mimic, it raises the question why would he need to do this? He knows that Cassie is unconscious, he knows that now she knows about his abilities, and lastly, Cassie can't go anywhere or do anything at the moment. So why would he need to try his tricks at all? Furthermore, the Mimic was desperate to get out of the sinkhole, and after the elevator falls, he has a perfect opportunity to do so through the elevator shaft. So with all that in mind, if the elevator ending is the one that will be canon, Roxy's chances to survive are pretty high. There's also 2 points that I'm not counting in here, because I deem them invalid. First one is that when Roxy calls Cassie after the credits scene, it's the same voice line that Roxy said earlier, and so it must be the Mimic. But Steelwool was already reusing voice lines before on some occasions, so this point is not an argument. And second one is that in the game files this same line is tagged as Roxy, so it must be her. It's not an argument either, as game files are an unreliable source of information, the same as it was for Gregory's voice lines in the elevator, which are tagged as him. But now that we finished assessing the chances, there is something else that should be mentioned. That is, what these characters mean for the narrative. If all characters will survive, while the ending will count as good ending and might make someone happy, the story can become shallow. If after everything that happened, everyone survived, the audience might begin to feel like there's no stakes and no consequences. And for the opposite, if everyone dies, then we are missing a lot of narrative opportunities with characters who went through hell. Not only that, but there's also a question of players' attachment to these characters. If nobody survives to return in the future, then it's a massive hit for many people. Who are we gonna be latched onto in the next installment then? Gregory? What I think will most likely happen is that one or two characters will die, while the others will return in some capacity, suffering from consequences after the tragedies that they endured. For now, the final predictions look like this. I added here Cassie as she almost certainly survived, Jeremy as he almost certainly died, and DJ in the middle, since we saw him in Help Wanted 2, but other than that there's not much to say about him. And that's where we'll end. Thank you for watching. Press like and subscribe if you like this video, watch another one if you want to. Good luck and I'll see you again soon.